This week, we welcome Kush Sharma, Director, Municipal Modernization and Partnerships at MISA, Ontario, to discuss why you should run your security program like an election campaign. In the Leadership and Communication segment, PwC urges boards to give CISOs a seat at the table. CISO salary surge, fewer job changes, bigger paychecks for experienced cybersecurity leaders. Fostering a cybersecurity first culture, key leadership insights for building resilient businesses, and more. Business Security Weekly starts now.
This is a Security Weekly production for security professionals by security professionals. Please visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to all the shows on our network.
It's the show where we explore the business of security to improve the security of business. Your trusted source for actionable insights on leadership, communication, and innovation. Get ready for Business Security Weekly. Do your end users always, and I mean always without exception, work on company-owned devices and IT-approved apps? I didn't think so. So my next question is, how do you keep your company's data safe when it's sitting on all those unmanaged apps and devices? 1Password has an answer to this question: Extended Access Management. 1Password Extended Access Management helps you secure every sign-in for every app on every device because it solves the problems traditional IAM and MDM can't touch. Check it out at securityweekly.com/1Password. That's the number 1 password. Let's talk about something that's becoming increasingly important for enterprise companies worldwide: cyber risk management. Traditionally, cyber risk has been managed manually in silos, separate from the business's core operations. The future is about getting real-time risk insights benchmarked against your industry peers through automation. And CyberSaint's CyberStrong platform is leading the charge. CyberStrong is not just another point solution. It's a revolutionary platform. It's a quantified top-down risk approach where your unique cyber risks inform C-suite decision-making to identify your top 5 cyber risks and the controls to mitigate them. Sign up for your free cyber risk analysis by visiting securityweekly.com/cybersaint. Your customers' and employees' identities are your responsibility to keep safe. But who is helping you stay safe from identity-based threats? Identity is the key to getting security right. And with the right identity partner, so much more is possible for your business than you thought. From strengthening cybersecurity to increasing revenue to reducing inefficiencies and costs, Okta unlocks growth and new possibilities for its customers. Go to securityweekly.com/Okta to learn more about Okta and the company's commitment to leading the fight against identity attacks. Welcome to Business Security Weekly. This is episode number 367, recorded October 7th, 2024. I am your host, Matt Alderman. Joining me today for this interview segment are my co-hosts. First, Mr. Jason Albuquerque. Hey, Jason.
Hey there, Matt. Crazy weekend for NFL. Pats lose on a touchdown called back. Crazy scenario with Josh Allen and the Bills, man. He took quite a hit. That was scary. You know, I thought he wasn't going to come back, but Cowboys win, Broncos win. No, good weekend for you, I guess.
I guess if I'm rooting for both teams, like college was crazy this weekend too, with all the upsets. Like for the top 11 teams, like, oh yeah, it's crazy weekend. Yeah. Oh, and my second co-host, who's not big into football, but that's okay, Mr. Ben Carr. Hey, you're a Texas guy, you should be, right?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, core Texas guy. Looking at interesting weather with another tornado bearing down on Florida. Hurricane, sorry, not tornado, but hurricane. Yeah, we'll touch off a bunch of tornadoes, I'm sure. But yeah, it's been crazy. Weather's nice here, but do not envy the people in North Carolina, Georgia, and Florida, and all that going on.
No, another hurricane coming up the Gulf. No good. Kush Sharma is Director, Municipal Modernization and Partnerships at MISA, Ontario. Kush was the former CISO for CPR, City of Toronto, and Saputo with $34 billion in M&A and over $2 trillion in market cap experience. Kush has advised over 50 clients with Accenture and Deloitte. Kush currently advocates for Ontario municipalities on cyber matters and sits on the National CISO Committee for Canada. Kush, welcome to Business Security Weekly.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
So, Kush, when we were talking about this interview segment, the kind of the first title I wrote was why you should run your security program like an election campaign. Here in the States, we're less than a month away from an election. So I thought, why not talk about why wouldn't you run your security program like an election campaign? So here we are. So yeah. So let's start with why an election campaign? Like why would you think about building a security program kind of like how you would build an election?
Yeah, good question. I think CISOs that are more business focused, especially in the top, Fortune 100, let's say, the job or if you're in government, the job is political. It is not, you know, what tools you're putting in, how do you do threat detection. And I can tell you those business CISOs, some of them actually come from the business, nothing to do with cyber. They don't know, like you ask them for endpoint detection, they don't know. And so what I'm seeing and what I've been doing is looking at it from a perspective of me winning an election, me winning in a campaign, and what do I got to do? What are the moving parts? Who hates me? Who likes me? So all of that analysis now needs to be done, in my opinion, by CISOs if you want to succeed, if you want to stay out of getting in trouble, if you don't want to be sued, if you want to be on the good side of the board, etc.
I love this conversation. I'm looking forward to digging in because in my past, so I spent 10 years in the public sector, technology and cybersecurity, and I was also a politician for quite a little while. So I dabbled in the politics realm, and I was an elected official for quite a while. And I think one of the caveats here is, if it, to run your campaign, to run your department and your advocacy like a politician. I want to talk about it in the realm of a trustworthy politician, right? A politician who has ethics, a politician who is looking for the best interest of their constituency.
So Jason, not a politician then, right? That's what you're saying, not a politician.
But this is why I want to put that caveat out there, Ben, because having dabbled in politics at a young age and being an elected official at a young age, I saw the ugly side of politics. I really did. And it made me and my family decide that politics is a retired man's game when you have nothing to lose. So I want to make sure that we're talking about this in the light of folks who have the best interest, folks who are out there for the trustworthiness, because we know the dark side of politicians and politics, right? There can be corruption there. There can be trust issues there. There can be a lot of spin there. And that's not where we want our security program to be. We don't want it to be spin. We want it to be trusted.
That's correct. That's correct. So first and foremost, you have to be trusted. You have to be able to maneuver, and you have to be able to do things which are not crossing the line. Now, because we have authority, because we have, let's say, access to technologies, tools, processes, information from executives, from the mayor, from council, etc., you have to make sure it doesn't get to your head, because you have that. You can use that for the negative aspect of that job, right? You can use it to take down people, but we have to keep to our ethics. I'm certified, for example, CISSP, many other certifications, and part of that is having that ethical viewpoint. And if you don't have that, then you have to retract your certification. So we don't have a global kind of engineering or accounting kind of standard around the world for cyber. But if we look at what we do have, you have to abide by those ethics, and you just have to sign off on it before you get those certifications. So it's extremely important to keep arm's length because I'll give you a quick example. I started off in cyber, but then I got privacy operations, then they gave me forensics, then they started asking me to do other things, investigations, which are really should be law enforcement. But if your team is trustworthy, they're only providing facts, and you're not on the left side, nor are you on the right side, you're independent, and you're providing only the facts for the cases, then your trust will grow. And that's how we grew it at the City of Toronto when I was the inaugural CISO. And that resulted in me having a relationship with law enforcement where they trusted our findings, where we did a lot of the work for them because it's all digital. We don't do any of the criminal stuff, right? We just find things for them. And those are the positive relationships you need to keep. And if any one of them, whether it's a counselor, whether it's a mayor, executive, or a bureaucrat or law enforcement, come to you and start asking you to do things that are in the gray zone or getting into the wrong side of stuff, you have to tell them, you have to tell them no, and you have to move on. And that is a conversation I used to have right up front. Is like, this is the line, right? And if we cannot go past this line because this is unethical, against the law, etc., against regulation, etc. So once they understand that up front, as opposed to later when they come to you and you're a CISO trying to explain to them you're not allowed to do this, and the relationship gets ruined because you haven't put everything up front. So it's a good idea to put the cards on the table, to let them know that you're going to be playing by these specific rules and you're not on the left side or the right side.
So Kush, I'm going to use a Matt term. Let's double click on that a little bit, right? Let's chat about this a little bit deeper, because in politics, it's very important to have a campaign staff and a campaign staff that you trust, right? How important is it in this role to have the right campaign staff, whether it be technical or non-technical roles, skills in communication, skills in building relationships, art of negotiation skills, because so much in the public sector is the art of negotiation, right? So talk about the importance of a campaign staff, right? It's equivalent on the cyber team.
It's like one-to-one. So outside of the technical folks that you have, right, those are your core people, and you have to rely on them to inform you of what's going on of the processes, of the technologies, of what's, is it X or Y, and give you that technical guidance. Your job is to convert that into something that someone else can understand that is non-technical. So from a team perspective, I found, anyway, from my experience, one, you need a communications person. So what I did there was I hired someone to speak on my behalf, just like a campaign would do, just like the President of the United States has, just like the Prime Minister of Canada has. There's a spokesperson that gets on the podium and speaks to all the challenges, the issues, the updates, does all the communications for you. I'm not a communication expert. I'm not trained in that, although I can communicate, but that's not my specialty. So why would I even venture to do this and fail? So that's number one. Number two is I hired, in my specific example, a political scientist. So someone that actually ran campaigns for politicians. And so then we gave them an opportunity to ramp up on cybersecurity and ramp up on that specific threat. So we would provide them training and invest in them, several tens of thousands of dollars. In return, we would get that person that could deal with the issues and that can go and speak to the mayor and the councillors and do that politicking, where I don't need to get my hands dirty. I don't need to be in every single meeting. So that saves me time in focusing on strategy. The third is having an administrative team. So actually hiring someone from finance, not a cyber person that does a budget, but an actual finance person that all they do all day long is understand how that specific city or government organization makes money, and how do they disperse that money, etc. What are the specific rules of the road? What are the loopholes in the policies? How can we, right? This is all within the scope of the right side. And then, so that's number three. Then in that administrative function, you should get your own HR person, your own procurement person. These are the critical roles. So procurement knows how to actually get things done in the government, kind of, let's say, government procurement process, right? It's very cumbersome, full of red flags, full of processes, full of forms to fill out, all kinds of administration. It'll take you forever to figure this out. So why not hire someone from the procurement team and bring them over to your team, pay them a little bit more. So if you get an outside person, they're not going to understand the policy of that city, of that town, of the state government, whatever it is. You need someone in-house. And if you cannot do that, and if they're not willing to move, or there's some roadblocks there, what you do is you ask them to pay for their time, or you have them dedicated for you. So they would do 25% of their role for cybersecurity procurements. And then they already know how to do it. They already know which forms to fill out. They know who to talk to. They know all of those details. They know what the lawyers are going to say, what they're not going to say. They know what questions the mayor is going to ask you or the politicians are going to ask you. So that's all covered. And then for HR, well, hold on. You're busy as a CISO. You cannot be hiring 5 people, 3 people, 10 people, 50 people, etc. In my case, we had to hire 62 people in a year. We got a budget approved, then we had to hire real quick and build the entire thing from scratch, real fast. And so there's no time for that. So we went internally, we had HR expert to help us, and then externally, we actually had a bidding war. And what mistake kind of government officials make is they just go with one, right? So I went with 5 different recruiting companies, and I basically said, here's all the roles divided by 5. We're going to give you this much percentage, which is lower than what you would normally get, but our margins are higher, right, in terms of the number of roles. And so then they competed against each other. They had a specific timeline. And if they don't hit their timeline and they don't get us good people, then we give that role immediately to their competition. So it goes back into the pool, and then everyone can fight for it. And then if they don't get someone within another specified period of time, so if they don't meet their first milestone, then they would refund us X amount of money. So even if you're working in government, you have to be creative, because you could do things like that, right? So be creative, save money for the taxpayers, save money for your organization, and that resonates well with the mayor, the council, and your executive, city manager, whoever it is. And once they see that you're actually running it like a business and you're trying to save money for the city, for the organization, then they trust you, right? That you're not just some technical person who's trying to stop ransomware, but you're actually understanding the political environment and you're understanding the financial environment more than anything. And then you're trying to do your part to save money for taxpayers.
So much to unpack in there, Jason. So I love the concept of finding the right campaign staff, right? Because I think we talk about this a lot on the show. Is we have to be able to talk to the business, understand the business, right? And what you're talking about here, Kush, is the ability to bring in people that can communicate with other politicians in this particular case, but even in the commercial world, right? I would imagine that a communications director is almost like a BSO, right? Somebody in the business unit that understands kind of the business line, that can translate the cybersecurity to the business impact, similar to how a spokesperson has to kind of also kind of bridge that gap. But I never thought about procurement, right? That's an interesting one, because we have to go buy technology, right? And bring tools in, contracts. You were talking a little bit about legal. It's just a different way to think about it. Is you just think that these departments exist, but having some of that expertise on your team might actually kind of help speed some things along for you if you do it right.
And Matt, not to interrupt though, but in the public sector, it's less like it's different departments. It's almost like it's different businesses. Because think about it this way: you have the administration side of it, which is your taxes and your assessments and things like that. But guess what? You also have Department of Public Works, which is like construction and roads management. You have police and fire, which is public safety. You have EMS, which is healthcare and emergency management. Those are different businesses. So if you take a look at any type of municipal government, statewide government, it's businesses within businesses. And that's why I have so much respect. Having been in that grind for a decade, I have so much respect for folks who want to go into public sector, who want to give to their community and give their skill sets to the community, because it's not like understanding another business unit. It's like understanding 16, 17, 25 businesses. That's the level of detail that these leaders have to get to.
Yeah, it's very different than private sector. So in the city of Toronto, when I was there, I had to learn 44 different businesses. We have 44 divisions. So I had to understand water systems. Then the next day I'm talking to solid waste. Then the next day I'm talking to elections people. Then the next day I'm talking to building maintenance. Then I'm talking to folks doing HVAC systems, fleet. Then I'm talking to tax people. So every day is different. And then outside of it, from a municipal level, you have the core kind of city or town. And then outside of that are what we call here agencies, boards, and corporations. there's like the police, right? They're a different legal entity. They're part of the city or part of your, town, but they're legally separate. You can't just go into their systems. Wastewater, they have separate systems. You can't just go into OT environment and say, I'm the CISO. No, yeah, there's negotiation that has to be done. They have to trust you. And so you have to run that campaign. And you're one person. You cannot physically accomplish what you need to and physically be in all these meetings and deal with all the executives. So you need people to go in there and deliver the message that you've crafted and you've kind of came up with in the vision, and then they customize it. They make it specific for those businesses. We do a little bit of research, and then in government, at least, you take that BSW model, right? And then you have to put people in charge of those specific units. And so what we did is we went to those executives and those specific, we call them divisions at the city, but went to that division head and we said, okay, we know we don't know anything about water. Okay, we're not water experts. We're cybersecurity experts and we know how to protect those systems. But we're not water experts. We're not here to take anything from you. We're here to work within your budget. We're here to give you budget. So many times I actually took my budget because I needed to get something accomplished and I gave it to the other division. And I said, I need to put these tools in. I need to put these processes in. I know you don't have any funding. I will fund you because my job is as a CISO to protect the city. So I will, for whatever amount of years, I'll fund it. But after that, you take over from a operational perspective. And so you have to understand you're not trying to build an empire, especially in government. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. There is just too much. Imagine dealing with 44 people in my case. Then we had 25 council members, and then the mayor's office, and then another 55 agencies, corporations, and bodies that had CEOs, which are run more like private. So imagine the chief of police. You gotta go speak to. Like they have different jobs. They have different expectations. They have different outcomes. And so how do you manage all of that? Well, you have to put your time into the relationships and let your people deal with all the other operational items. And it's very, very difficult because they usually promote technical CISOs, like I would call them architects. They know everything about cybersecurity. They know where to put it in the cloud. They know where to put the firewall. Well, that's not your role. You're an executive. Like you don't see the CFO doing taxes. You don't see the CIO configuring servers. But for some reason, CISOs are expected to know every single thing about endpoint protection, IDM, all of the different OT security, IoT security. Are you crazy? There's no way in hell you can know all this stuff anymore. It's impossible. So you have to understand that, and you have to this is what I used to do is I used to educate them and say, listen, you go to the foot doctor, you go to the brain doctor, you go to the heart doctor. Cybersecurity has all these domains, and we used to list them all from CISSP. And then these are the new stuff that's not even the books yet, right? Election security is not a chapter in any kind of certification. So you have to show them all of that. And then when they see it, then they're like, oh my God, now I understand. You're just like me. I'm the CFO, I have tax, I have financial accounting, I have reporting, I have dashboarding, I have this, I have that. They have multiple departments, just like we do. And once they understand that, then they're like, oh, okay, that's a lot of work for one person to know every single thing. And then you start building the relationship, and you start, you have to give to get, especially in government. You can't go in there and start demanding things. You have to figure out the specific inputs and outputs, let's call them, of a specific individual. You have to draw out the relationship map. Then you have to come up with a specific plan on how to attack that organization from a relationship perspective, right? We're in the red with this one, green in this one, yellow in this one. Greens, okay, my directors or whoever my people, they can deal with these groups because they're already green. They like us, we're good. Yellows, okay, let's get a senior person or hire someone to come in for a little bit, fix this problem. And the reds are the ones I focused on that are like the relationship is completely busted for whatever reason. It's not working. I need to really put time and energy into this. I need to build the relationships. I need to go out and maybe do some, a few favors for them, maybe do a project for them, put them in a priority list, whatever I need to do to change their perception of my team, not specifically of me, but my team, because the problem is actually with the team. The one team versus the other team is the problem. Infrastructure versus security, for example, always an issue. So we have to solve those issues on the ground level first, and then build it up.
So, Jason, how many times did you have to go fund other departments to get your stuff done? Or
Oh,
Ben?
all the time.
Yeah.
All
right?
the time, right? I mean, that happens all the time. And the struggle with the public sector is that everything is such a long tail. It takes a long time to get things done. It takes a long time to get decisions. And not to mention the couple of other constituents that we haven't talked about yet. Number one, your actual citizens, because that's the boss at the end of the day. The citizens of whatever government entity you're in, right? That's the boss. They're the voting. They're the people who vote. And then there's one more. It's called unions. Unions are a whole other, it's not part of the 44 departments, right? They're their own entities that something as simple as implementing MFA could be brought up as a union issue against union rules or something like that. Like there's a long tail. So, Kush, from your perspective, we don't have a lot of time, right? We're in a position in cybersecurity that time is the enemy in order to bring in remediations or best practice, right? We want to do things with a sense of urgency. So, part of being a CISO is being a politician or a salesperson or whatever you want to call it. How do you leverage your influence in an environment where certain strategic decisions could have a very, very long tail, but the risk is so high that you need a sense of urgency to get things done?
There's a few things I recommend. One is, just put together a dashboard. So it's literally, maybe 3 to 5 slides max, and they're all pictures. And one picture is, okay, where is the industry at? Where is everyone? What's happening with the other governments in the world? The next one is really probably 2 slides on what is your actual risk. So you have to go in and get all of the privacy impact assessments, pen testing, risk assessments, third-party assessments, anything you can get your hands on in terms of data, proxy server information, log information, VM scanning information, whatever you can get. Okay, you put it all together in a package and you show them all the issues that are currently happening in the actual city or town or state, whatever it is. And so if you don't provide evidence, then they're not going to believe you. They're not going to trust you. You can say whatever you want, and what most CISOs, when in government specifically, they get their techies and they get promoted, a lot of them, and then they start talking that tech, and they don't. You're talking to folks who are school teachers or bus driver or whoever it is got elected. They don't care about cybersecurity, nor do they understand it. What they do understand is what's the risk? So, okay, well, we haven't looked at election systems in 5 years. We haven't been involved in any RFPs with this. So you tell a story, and this is what's coming up. This is the number one priority for this city. And this is what the city manager, the mayor, has pronounced to the citizens. And this specific project, or whatever the initiative is, has a high chance of being hacked because of these reasons here. Now, we have certain capabilities in the city, so we're not asking for a full, 100% of funding, but we do need 70% of the funding in order to protect this investment that you're making. And so you have to cross-reference whatever is happening, right? And every month, every 2 months, something changes within municipal sector. So today's housing, tomorrow's homelessness, who knows, whatever it is, you have to change. So you have to tell them that if you don't provide this funding, I cannot protect these investments. And then they start thinking, what do you mean? And they start asking a lot of questions. Well, this is what's going to happen. And then the second thing, so that's kind of the leadership level. Second, what I did anyways, I went to the chief procurement officer, and I said, you're going to sign this piece of paper because every one of my procurements is being held up for cybersecurity. We have credible evidence that we could be hacked at any time. This is what the industry is, this is what's happening. These are our other municipal sector members that have been hacked in the last 3 months. We're going to be next. Here's some evidence of how bad our situation is internally. And if you don't speed these up instead of 8 months into 3 months or 2 months or 1 week or whatever you want, or let me pick 3 vendors and go at it, or sole source it depending on the risk. You need to sign this piece of paper, which is a risk acceptance form, that until these things are deployed, you are taking the risk for all of it. And so they did not want to sign that piece of paper. So magically, every one of my procurements within 3 months was approved and signed off, and all my money was released to me. And then I started, I had 9 months now to actually deliver. So if I didn't do that, I would have failed, because they would have taken 8 months just to approve the stuff. And then I have I have basically 4 months to actually deliver. And it's impossible to deliver. We had $32 million worth of activities that we had to do. Cannot be done in 4 months, no matter how many people I bring in. So I had a runway of 3 to 4 months to get my budget approved, hit the road, do the sales activities, do the campaigning, and then do the business case, and then get the procurement done, all within 3 months, 4 months. And so it was incredible. It's a wild time, but we got it. We got it done, because you have to understand what levers to pull, and you have to understand the risk is not yours, and you have to be brave enough to go and tell the CFO or the chief procurement officer, or whoever it is, head of water, hey, this has to be done. And this is my role and my function, and I'm in charge of this. But I need your help. So if you help me, we can work together. And when the audit comes, et cetera, comes, I have your back. When someone questions you if something's breached, we're going to say together, and I'll be there in camera saying, we did the best we can. This is the budget that was given by council, right? You got to be willing to put them on the spot a little bit too. And it's some people, right, don't want to do that, right?
It's a delicate balance. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. So, I mean, we have to be nice about. I'm not saying to bulldoze everything. What I'm saying is that
right.
That's why you hire some of these folks, because they teach you and they train you the communication and the poli-sci people, and the finance and the HR and the procurement people that you hired train you and teach you how to maneuver the whole establishment and how to get through it without getting crushed, because they are from the other side. So one's going to help you with the politics. The other one's going to help you with your communication. They're going to tell you what to say and what not to say. The other person's going to tell you how to communicate what to say to a specific councillor or mayor or whoever, because everyone's personalities are different. We have left kind of leaning councillors, and we have right leaning councillors. You cannot be speaking to them in the same way, because one's maybe it's more, they're looking at business, they're looking at GDP of the city. The other one's looking at, how do we put homeless people in shelters? Completely different agendas. So you have to always tie what you're doing to one of those agendas, and then let them know that, if these 2 or 3, for example, systems go down, you cannot track all the homeless, you cannot track the shelters, you cannot track how much food they're getting, you cannot track the financing, you cannot send this data to the state or federal government who's funding us, right? We have to send them some social insurance numbers, etc., right? So all for tracking purposes, compliance. So that's how you have to think about it. You have to figure out what they're doing, what the process is, technology under the process. Once you understand the tech, it's easy, because I'm protecting the tech. Now I understand how it goes from my security control to the tech stack that's running the business that they want, or they're implementing something new, and that's going to help them achieve their target. That's exactly how you map it. And then 2 months later, okay, we're done with homelessness. Now we're focused on new technologies and the sustainability. Oh, we're getting some solar panels and we're putting them everywhere. Okay, let's switch to that now, right? However you guys want to do it. But whatever
But Kush, very similar to changing business objectives and goals from a business perspective. The politics or the topics they're going to cover are different. You've got to have a team that can negotiate and understand how to align the security requirements to these projects in order for them to be successful and for you to be successful. I mean, it's probably a hyperscale at a city like Toronto, for example, that has lots of different businesses, but there's some of the same, I think, in large organizations that also have a lot of these kind of complex changing business objectives as well.
That's correct. So when I was in private sector, which I was in most of my life, you have to understand what the priorities are of the organization. And so that's, I think, the number one mistake that CISOs make that are not from the business side of the house. So I do a lot of M&A, digital transformation type work. So you work with the business more than you do with infrastructure, right? Because you're trying to understand what their objectives are and how to protect those investments, bottom line. So in private sector, you have to go and talk to all the executives. Like, you cannot be sending text messages and emails. It's old school. Let's go for lunch, dinner. You have a little bit of budget for them. You take them out. You talk to them like a human being. And a human being will tell you all of their issues and problems when they trust you. You cannot build trust over a video conference call, in my opinion, or a text message or email. You have to meet with the person, get to know them a little bit, and then they'll tell you, I don't like what your team's doing here. Well, I have a problem with that team, and I'm trying to get this AI stuff in. No one's helping me. Oh, I can't get these laptops for some reason for 8 months. I don't know. It's driving me crazy. I have 5 people using old laptops. We're not efficient. Whatever the issue is, they will tell you. Now, if you do that with every executive, all C-suite executives, if you could get to the board, that's even better, and the CEO, et cetera, and maybe some other key people in the business. Now you have a head start, because before you start doing anything, you understand what the problems are. Once you understand what the issues and challenges are, now you could prioritize. And the other mistake that CISOs make is they start prioritizing. So what I do is I look at my budget, I look at the business objectives of the corporation, and then if I have 100 things, I pull 1 to 100, and then I go to all the business leaders and I segregate it out. And I say, okay, this is all the finance projects, these are all the operational projects, these are all the IT projects, whatever it is, right? These are all the projects for, I don't know, hardware, I don't know, whatever they're making, whatever the organization, manufacturing, whatever it is. And then I'd ask them, okay, listen, I have 100 projects, right? And I have a team of X and I have a budget of Y. And be transparent. It's impossible for me to do all these projects, right? With what we have today. So if we were to prioritize, these are the 10 that you have, finance, go from 1 to 10. So which one, if I have to make a choice, or if you have to make a choice, which one would you do and rank them? So they're ranking them. Now you do that ranking, then you go to the CEO or to the board or to the steering committee, whoever is governing you, and you say, this is the exercise we've done. We've spoken to all these executives. We've received the feedback, bottom up, top down. And this is how it is. So these are the top, out of the 100, top 10, right? I have this much budget that you've given me, and I have this many people. I have to keep the lights on, so we're going to X amount, 20%, let's say, out of my budget, because I have to keep the lights on. And even though I can't do the project, I still have to do advisory services to tell the project what controls to put in, and they could do it. So I still need that 20, maybe another 10% for that. So now I have 70%. With 70%, this is the amount of money and resources you're asking me for the 100 projects. These are the top 10 based on what the other executives said, not me. And these 10 require, let's say, 50% of my 70%, okay, that I have left. Now I have 20%. Okay, now I have 90 projects to do with this 20%. It's now they already know in their mind this is impossible. You haven't even said a word. So now you ask them what I'm asking for advice and recommendations. Are we okay to live with this? Here are the options. You're not saying no to anything. You're not saying we're going in blind into production. What you're saying is the project we're going to give recommendations. The project is responsible, and they're going to have the budget and the people and the consultants or whatever they're going to do, and we're just going to give them the advice. And then we're going to look at it after the project is implemented and make sure they took the advice. And then we will report back to you with that 20% that we have left.
Yeah, but it's capacity planning measured up against your risk profile. And if you don't understand it, folks, you're never going to get there. Kush, thank you so much for joining us on Business Security Weekly.
No, thank you. I appreciate it. It's a fun chat.
Yes, we're going to take a quick break and then cover the leadership and communications articles for this week.